Okay, we're diving into some pretty deep waters this time, huh? USO.
USOs, yeah.
Unidentified Submerged Objects, right? For those of us who, need a little acronym reminder, basically it's like the underwater UFO thing. And from what I'm seeing in this research you sent over, it's looking like there's a lot more to this than just some, blurry sonar readings.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. UFOs, they always seem to grab all the headlines, but the whole concept of something unexplained, something unknown operating in the oceans, possibly for like centuries. It's fascinating for sure. But if we're being honest here, it's also a little unsettling, right?
Yeah, just a tad. You've sent over interviews, case studies, historical analysis. You definitely do your homework on this one. So let's unpack this a bit. What have we learned about these mysterious USOs? I think a good place to start might be Richard Dolan and the work he's done. He seems to be like the expert on all this.
Yeah, Dolan, he brings a really unique perspective. He's a historian by training. So he approaches these things not just as like a collector of weird stories, but like as a historian would, looking for patterns and context, historical context, trying to find explanations throughout history. And what's fascinating is what he's finding is that USOs, they're not just some isolated incidents.
Right. He's uncovered hundreds of these documented USO encounters, some of them going back centuries. That's not just a random blip, that's a pattern.
Exactly.
And you know what else really stood out to me?
What's that?
It's that a lot of these USOs, they're not just, like stationary objects just hanging out on the ocean floor. They're described as moving between the air and water.
Yeah, the
researchers call them transmedium objects.
Transmedium.
I mean, come on, that's wild.
That brings up a really interesting point, It really challenges what we think we understand about what's possible with, like, technology. Think about the kind of energy it would take to transition from air to water seamlessly, dealing with pressure changes, density, the basic laws of physics, really. If these accounts are even remotely accurate, we're talking about some seriously advanced technology beyond anything we can even fathom right now.
Okay, so wait, hold on a second. Are we really saying that something, or possibly someone, has figured out a way to basically bend the laws of physics in a way that we haven't even dreamed of yet? And they're just like casually cruising around in our oceans?
It's a compelling question, isn't it? And the fact that we have reports of these transmedium objects going back centuries, long before we had the technology to even imagine such a thing, that just adds another layer to the whole mystery.
It's almost too much to even wrap your head around. Okay, so we've got these objects potentially intelligently controlled, zipping in and out of the ocean like it's nothing. Which brings us to those case files you dug up. And let me tell you, some of these, they found like they're straight out of a science fiction thriller. All right, so let's dive into some of these case files. I'm always up for a good mystery. And the one that really jumped out at me was, it was the Shag Harbor incident.
Oh, yeah.
It's like something out of a Cold War, spy novel.
It really does. It was 1967 near Shag Harbor in Nova Scotia. You had multiple witnesses reporting this object, bright lights descending towards the water. And we're not just talking about, a couple of shadowy figures on a foggy night.
Right.
This was RCMP officers, local fishermen, even some teenagers who were out for a drive. Some of them even described hearing this whistling sound as the object went down.
Okay, so you've got a lot of eyewitnesses here. And it's not like everybody just, brushed it off as nothing. I mean, according to what I'm reading, the Canadian authorities, they actually thought it was a plane crash at first, right?
Yeah, they did. They sent divers down to search for wreckage. They couldn't find anything. And this is where it gets really interesting. It turns out both U.S. and Soviet naval vessels were in the area at the time.
Wait, are you serious? U.S. and Soviet ships? During the Cold War? Come on, talk about wrong place, wrong time. What were the odds?
I know, right? And it gets even weirder.
Weirder.
How? Dolan, he uncovered these reports that suggest the Soviets, they were particularly insistent on getting closer to the area where this object was seen going down. Almost as if he were trying to retrieve something. The whole incident turned into this international standoff, which, just adds another layer to the mystery.
Okay, so we've got this potential USO crash. We've got multiple witnesses, a Cold War showdown. This is a lot to process. But it doesn't end there, does it? Because then you have those reports of something rising from the water a few days later.
Right, and what's interesting? Dolan, he even found this secondhand account, this kind of rumor, really, from someone who claimed to have been on the USS Nautilus, the first nuclear submarine.
Oh, wow.
This person claimed that the sub may have been specifically modified to, get this, retrieve underwater craft.
Hold on, are we talking about a submarine that was designed to recover USOs? If that's true, what does that tell us about what the Navy knew and when they knew it? It makes you wonder, if they were retrieving these objects, what did they find?
Right. It's a question that has fueled so much speculation for decades.
Yeah.
And while we have to acknowledge this account, it's hearsay,
Sure.
it hasn't been officially confirmed, but it's still this really tantalizing detail, especially when you consider that the Shag Harbor incident, it's not the only one where these objects seem to be, well, interacting with our technology.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Like that Gulf of Carpentaria case that you sent over.
Oh, right.
It's a perfect example. And this time, it wasn't just lights in the water. This thing messed with their compass. It's like it was manipulating their electromagnetic fields or something.
Yeah, in 1972, a shrimp boat off the coast of Australia, they had this encounter with this strange object. It reportedly hovered above the water before just vanishing. The crew, they experienced radio interference. Their compass went haywire. Everything pointed to some kind of electromagnetic disturbance.
It's like these USOs are operating on a totally different technological level than we are, manipulating energy fields, defying our understanding of physics. Which, I mean, if that's the case, then what does that tell us about the Puerto Rico incident? Because that one takes things to a whole new level. This Puerto Rico incident, though, that one's, it's kind of freaking me out, to be honest.
Yeah, I can see why.
According to Elizondo, this wasn't just some quick blip on a sonar screen, right? We're talking about a massive dark object, and it actually, took a cruise missile during a recovery mission, no less.
It's definitely one of the more, unsettling cases out there. If what Elizondo's saying is true, it really makes you think about the capabilities these objects might have. I mean, to not just, detect our tech, but to actually mess with it, disable it.
Yep.
That's a whole other level. We're talking a crazy advanced understanding of energy, maybe even weaponized energy,
Yeah, and it's one thing to think about them watching us, studying us, maybe keeping their distance, but to actually interfere with a military operation, it makes you wonder what their whole deal is. What are their motives here? Are they threatened by us? Are they protecting something? What's the end game?
Right. Those are the big questions. And the thing is, it's not like this stuff is just happening in some remote corner of the ocean either. You brought up Catalina Island before and how USOs seem to really hang out there. Dolan, he found a ton of sightings clustered around that area. What is it about Catalina?
It's like their favorite underwater Starbucks or something, right? But you also mentioned this thing about after 1968, there's this shift in USO reports. They mostly happen at night, especially if the military's involved. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it kind of feels like intentional behavior, doesn't it? It's almost like maybe they got wiser to our whole increased effort to find them. Our technology for spotting them got better, so they changed tactics. Yeah, this isn't random, it's deliberate. Which kind of plays into Dolan's whole theory about an intelligence that's been on Earth longer than we have, using our oceans as cover.
Talk about the ultimate stealth mode. If you don't want to be found by, noisy land dwellers, the bottom of the ocean is a pretty good place to hide. But even with all that, it's still a big jump from weird lights and stuff to, I don't know, an ancient underwater civilization.
Oh, for sure. And it's important to approach all of this with a healthy amount of skepticism, absolutely. But even with that, even if we're skeptical, when you really look at the evidence, and yeah, maybe some of it's circumstantial, but still, it's hard to completely ignore the idea that, something big is going on in our oceans. We're not just talking about lights in the sky. We're talking about things breaking our understanding of physics, messing with our tech, and, straight up dodging every attempt we make to figure them out.
It's mind-blowing, for sure. And more than a little creepy if you think about it too much. Makes you really question everything you thought you knew about everything. History, our place in the universe. It's like Dolan said, if this stuff is real, if these things have been here all along, what does that mean for how we understand, anything?
That's the question that everyone should be asking, I think. What else is down there? What haven't we found yet? What secrets are our oceans hiding? Keep those questions in mind because, the answers could be closer than we think.
I'll say. Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about today. And for you listening, we hope this deep dive has given you plenty to ponder about those mysterious USOs. Keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and never forget, sometimes the most amazing discoveries, they're hidden right beneath the surface.